Welcome to Immersion. You have reached Strata 7. Outside, there was an optimistic sun, and the people busied around the market, unaware of any of the commotion that had occurred in the bank. The pause informed Reniki that he had lost negligible battery power and there was no damage to his mechanical or bionic structures. The robo-dog and the cat had waited patiently outside the bank and now trotted diligently at their owners' sides. Maybelline returned to Reniki's pocket for a nap. "You got my bits?" asked Queenie. "For nearly getting us killed?" replied Reniki, contemplating the difference between irony, sarcasm, and humor. Paz began to explain, but Reniki shut her out. He really did not want to know at this juncture. "Listen, Mr. Whoever you are, there's many a hiccup ahead. You are in the zones now. You need to get used to the hiccups. Sides, I gotta feed my cat. She ain't no robot like that mutt." The robo-dog gave a little yelp and lowered its head in shame. Queenie's cat moved closer to Reniki and sniffed the air for any scent of lunch. Reniki took something from the bag, the smallest nugget he could find, and handed it to Queenie. "That is very generous of you," she said, taking the payment and subtly raising an eyebrow with the tiniest of smiles. The payment was excessive, and the cat would eat for a month. Reniki was none the wiser. Then Queenie was gone, running into the crowds as lithe as the cat behind her. A blue feather shimmied to the ground. For some reason, Reniki was compelled to pick it up and put it in his pocket, where Maybelline wrapped it around herself. Back on the main street, Flex approached. He was smiling and jaunty. Reniki felt reassured to see him. "I need a vehicle, Flex. Something to get me to where I am going, 30 miles or so," said Reniki. Yes, Mr. Leatherman. Where you goin' is where I'm goin'. Let's find a vehicle. Jerome, he is the car man. He got cars and bikes and scoots and copters and airships, so they say." "Take me to Jerome," said Renake. "And by the way, my name is Renike." "Okay, Mr. Leatherman," Flex sniggered and ushered Reniki down an alleyway. They arrived at a disused concrete building. The robo-dog curled up and waited outside. There were echoes of voices, activity, and motor engines being revved from another part of the building. There is a smell of fuel and mumbled communications. Somewhere, too, there is music. Flex beckoned Reniki to Jerome's office, a ramshackle room filled with books, more books than Reniki had ever seen. Books were no longer used in most homes or schools, and the paper shortages after the warmings had meant that they were no longer being produced commercially. Paper had become heavily taxed, and there were also problems with scritters. Scritters are large crawling insects that had been genetically modified in a laboratory by the Russian military. They were a fusion of a cockroach and a wasp, but their wings had become almost defunct in the genetic processing. They could get a few feet above the ground, but not for very long. Scritters were highly protective and thus easily trained. They were perfect soldiers. They looked deformed, with big insect heads and metal body parts. At birth, scritters are born with a soft back. They seek protection from any material that offers a hard shell. Because of the huge landfill areas all around the world, the rubbish of hundreds of years had provided the perfect materials for protection. Plastics and metals were abundant in the fills, and the urchs and scritters were often seen sifting through the piles of discarded trash looking for treasures. During the Russia-China wars, scritters had been used to carry tiny incendiary devices on their backs, as they were not affected by the nerve gases. They were able to hold their breath for periods of time, and some had become amphibious. But after the wars, the scritters had bred like wildfire, devouring paper and trees and nesting in book spines where the glue offered a perfect cocoon for pupae. Whole libraries had been mutilated by them. They were a scourge on the planet, and another reason so many houses were built on stilts in the midcast projects, as scritters were terrified of heights. The more paper they ate, the more they reproduced. Books and paper matter that had not been digitally copied had been devastated and lost forever. "A car, you say?" asked Jerome. "I got plenty, but we got no fuel. We are working on some alternatives, but all prototypes so far. They cut off our fuel and generators after the riots. And the food supplies, I have been missing gummies. I loved those. Don't suppose you have any? Reniki shook his head as Jerome continued. Transport is a big problem. You could walk my friend if you can get through the tunnels, but there are booby traps all around the perimeters here in the zones. You probably wouldn't make it. Dead by morning, even before breakfast. And them pigs, they're hungry. Reniki checks the pause for details about the pigs in the tunnels, but they are uncharted. The pause was still struggling with connection and was operating intermittently. I have a hybrid cart, continued Jerome. It runs on solar, but only for about 3 hours per full charge if you do under 40K. And if it is a cloudy day, an hour. I can let you take it for 3,000 Gbits. It won't get off the ground without jet fuel, but it can drive on flat ground well enough. It holds the road okay, and even if you are a bad driver, it will get you 30 miles in an hour or so. And at that price, well, it's a steal, my friend. Reniki asks Paz how to drive it, but it is glitching again. Can you drive? Reniki asked Flex. Flex laughed. Of course I can, but how far we going might be better to get a horse. Reniki couldn't tell if Flex was joking or not, but either way, the prospect of traveling on horseback was not something he relished. He was starting to get a sense of fatigue after the fight in the bank despite high battery levels. A Scritter crawls across the floor and Jerome stamps on it. A black tar oozes from under his foot. Jerome sees Reniki might be changing his mind about the deal. I will take Tell, you got some Tell? The pause gets a signal. Tell, an abbreviation for tellurium, found in copper ore. Used in mobile phones, especially older versions where it was added to other metals, improving their strength and hardness and reducing corrosion. Rare due to the demise of traditional copper mines. Reniki, feeling confused about whether to get the vehicle and how much the exchange was worth, asks Paz for advice. I am not programmed to have opinions and am unable to make a useful prediction using probability. I do not have access to data about the vehicle. It has no computerized system. The seller seems to be shield protected, and I cannot assess his reliability. But Redact is within easy walking and running distance for a Mark II such as yourself. Reniki looks at Flex and then at Jerome. A Scritter is crawling up his boot, and he throws it off with a kick. He feels a rising panic and a thumping in his chest, which he does not recognize. Why was it so important that he not make a mistake? Why was he unable to understand the exchange's virtue or danger? Finally, Reniki said, I will run. Jerome shrugged his shoulders and stamped on another Scritter, mumbling, time waster, under his breath. Flex, looking aghast at the prospect of a run, sighed. Man, that is not a good idea. Wheelin' is safer, my friend. It's a good deal. Reniki turns to leave the enclosure, becoming irritated by the pestering and standing his ground. Flex mutters in disgust, bright side, foxy fool.
What you got is what I need.
There's a cobweb in my water, got your name on it.
What you got is what I need.
It's all about the money,
Cobweb
baby.
in my wallet, got your name
All about
on
the
it.
fees. It's all about the money, baby. All about the
There's a
fees.
cobweb in my water, got your name on it.
It's all about the money, baby. All about the fees.
There's a cobweb in my wallet, got your cobweb in my wallet, got your name on it. Got your name on it. Cobweb in my wallet, got your cobweb in my wallet, got your name on it. It's all about the money. It's all about the money.
It's all about the money, baby. All about the fees. It's all about the money,
There's a
baby. All
cobweb in my
about
wallet,
the
got your name on it.
What you got is what I need.
Got your name on it.
There's a cobweb in my wallet, got your name on it.
Humans have developed uniqueness from animals through a process of cognitive evolution. They are exceptional cultural learners and can read situations. These skills have enabled them to develop complex trading tools. They rely heavily on these skills to create abstract cerebral and linguistic representations when placing themselves in various situations. The cultural and socio-political environment in which humans have evolved has led them to acquire the cognitive skills, particularly mathematical, to support a sophisticated disposition, along with a capacity for reciprocal cooperation. Humans understand conceptual ideas of property and exchange. Humans are savvy. Humans broker deals.
There's a cup within my wallet, got your name on it.